As the modern age in philosophy approached its final stages in the early 19th century, a few authors arose with no strong connection to the main threads of previous dominant schools of thought. However, two important groups began to take shape. One inherited the aesthetic and individualistic spirit of Romanticism, aligned with the social revolutions and focus on the human individual within its own context. The other focused on the empirical and scientific developments of the modern era, which exploded after the scientific and industrial revolutions, and also Darwin's methodological and paradigmatic innovations in biology. The first is what became the Continental tradition in philosophy, which gained its name due to the majority of authors since Kant being from around continental Europe, and the second is known as the analytic tradition, focused on logical and empirical analysis. These would become the bedrock upon which contemporary philosophy began, and are still quite relevant to this day. In this tutorial, we will take a look into the development of the modern roots of continental philosophy. We can trace its beginnings back to the early 19th century with one of the most controversial figures in philosophy, Arthur Schopenhauer, a child of the idealists. He praised Kant, molding most of his theory within Kant's framework, but he openly despised Hegel and thoroughly criticized others, though embracing the aesthetic focus of late idealism. Thus, although embracing the principle of sufficient reason, Schopenhauer recognized that reason alone was insufficient to explain everything we apprehend of the world. We can indeed perceive and understand things in it, but often much more than that comes together with them while we do so. Bodily sensations, feelings, and other things which escape our conscious cognition. Thus, beyond reason, it is the will which is responsible for acquiring and processing the world onto the cognitive representations in our minds, for only our will encompasses all the objective processes and also all the underlying phenomena enveloped in our perception. This is the culmination of the idealist aesthetical movement, as this formulation of the will is akin to the spirit of Romanticism, as it is the unconscious strength of sentiment inherent to nature itself, manifesting from the smallest movement of a bacterium to the formation of human knowledge. This post-idealist romantic spirit also led to the first proper existentialist in philosophy, Soren Kierkegaard, another strong critic of Hegel. Despite being a thoroughly religious theologian who focused on faith and the concept of love within the Christian framework, he greatly criticized institutionalized religion and centered his thought on the personal level of human development. Thus, his fame as the first existentialist. He concerns himself with the purpose of existence, the ways to find it, and how to live life properly directed to it. To do so, one must take a leap of faith toward romantic love and the belief in the Christian God, for both have no sufficient reasons for a rational support and require no questioning. He developed many philosophical insights into previously commonsensical concepts, from anxiety to seduction, from melancholy to the absurd, in order to understand the context of the self in its development, frequently writing in literary form through characters or in satirical pieces inspired by one of the two most important figures to him, Socrates, the other being Jesus. This aesthetic framework encompasses all of his work, and thus ethics as well, as he criticizes Hegel through the unhappiest one character, who focuses too much on abstract thought and systems, forgetting to look and care for his own self. A good life would then be focused on the development of oneself in introspection toward a life of faith and love. Similarly, Ralph Waldo Emerson, prolific poet, writer, and controversial Unitarian minister, developed this romantic existentialist focus on self-improvement with great influence from previous German idealists, formalizing the romantic values into an American version of monist transcendentalism, similar to Spinoza, where human life, nature, and divinity are all parts of the same continuum. To acquiesce to this is to identify that all truths are contained in oneself, and nothing external is necessary to understand existence or divinity. Thus, autonomy is a major virtue. This perspective also greatly influenced his friend Henry David Thoreau, a Romantic philosopher who likewise focused on the simple individual life back in a state of nature devoid of any government or authority, writing extensively on ecological and environmentalist living and becoming an important source for anarchical thought. Another influence on Emerson was Friedrich Nietzsche, another one of the most controversial philosophers in history. An avid reader of Schopenhauer, he led his focus on the aesthetics, will, and philosophical criticism of his predecessors to the extreme. He posited what he called the eternal return, that life could merely be an endless repeating cycle from birth until death, which repeats itself over and over again with the same events, same sufferings, loves, passions, and brief moments of happiness occurring. At the end of one's life, everything would start over again, and nothing different would ever happen. This thought experiment from Nietzsche attempts to point out that we have only one life, and that if you want to live a life that is worth being lived indefinitely, that would be eternally returning. You should love your life as it is and live without regrets in the present. The conclusion, therefore, is amor fati, or love the destiny. In this existentialist vein, he stated that a life of servitude of religion or simple apathy would be a wasted one, and thus only through the power of the will could one break with the sheep mindset to free oneself from this cycle and become Übermensch, a being above human, or a superman in some translations. Considering himself more of a philologist or a scholar of language than a philosopher, Nietzsche defended that this mindset could only be achieved by using philosophy as a hammer, as it would reveal the values which subjugated people to authority, mainly those he identified with Christianity, and help transvaluate them into a dominant perspective focused on the self. Therefore, there would be no absolute moral values in the world, only the ones we build ourselves, a view called nihilism, from Latin nihil, meaning nothing, referring to this lack of dogmatic truths to guide us. He proposed this not only in theory, but also in writing, by eschewing the academic format toward writing in literary fashion or in self-contained maxims or aphorisms. Nietzsche died in 1900, characterizing not only a significantly different conception of philosophical development, but the shift from the modern period into our contemporary one at the beginning of the 20th century. His work and that of his predecessors established what would become the foundation for the Continental tradition in philosophy. In the next tutorial, we'll take a look at the foundation of what became the analytic tradition, a more scientific and logic-oriented tradition in contemporary philosophy.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe to my channel for more tutorials. Support me on Patreon so I can keep making content. And as always, feel free to email me, ProfessorDaveExplains@gmail.com.